Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Oda, for inviting me to come and speak. My job today is to kick off the day's conference and give you a view of the Turkish internet in relation to the rest of the world. Forgive me, there's quite a lot of data here, but you know, it's good to wake up with data and numbers. I'm not going to ask you to add any of them up. We've done that for you. I want to start just for those of you who don't know ComScore. We're a global company. We're based in a little town just outside Washington, D.C. We've grown really quite dramatically in the past year. We've just bought 4 companies in the last 18 months. And they've spread what we do quite considerably. We have 900 employees. We have more servers than employees. And we're one of the most innovative companies that I can tell. We're moving in different directions and trying to keep up with the internet, which is an extremely difficult thing to do. We've now grown to reporting internet web traffic in 43 countries globally. We have offices in 21 countries. We opened our office here in Turkey in February of 2009, and that's certainly growing quite well, and I'm very pleased to have my colleagues here today. As I said, we've grown. If you'd asked me 18 months ago what we were, I might have said, well, we're a web rankings company. We're certainly a digital company in the business of research, as opposed to a research company in the business of digital. But actually now what we are is an analytics company, a digital analytics company, looking at the world of user analytics, looking at site measurement, audience measurement. We're looking at copy testing, advertising effectiveness, tracking campaigns, and in the world of mobile, what people do with their mobile phone, what internet accesses they have. And indeed, even we bought a company that's looking at the optimization of voice traffic on mobiles this year. So, enough about us. What about you? Just to give you a little bit of a background as to how we get the data, because it's important to understand that. So we have panelists in 171 countries globally. Those panelists have a piece of software on their computer, and we literally take a digital copy of every page they see. We multiply that up on a monthly basis. We weight it against what we call an enumeration survey, and then we report the data, providing demographic information and categorized information. So what you're going to see is a review of Turkey across the globe. So what of the globe? Well, one of the things that's really important to recognize is since 1996, the internet has changed. Changed so much since, 66% of all the world's traffic came from the States that time ago, and now just 14% comes from the States. And if you see on the right-hand side, 40% of that comes from the Asia Pacific. The world has changed remarkably. And it's growing. If you look over there, I don't know if I've got a pointer. Do I have a pointer? Maybe. No. On the right-hand side, furthest away is Middle East and Africa. Latin America growing at 32% and 17%. And the Far East and Asia is growing at 7% against a global average of 10%. Now, you might think 7% is not much, but on that size, it's huge. What we do is track the internet from people who we know. So we track the internet at home and work. Well, in many countries globally, there is another part of the internet that we're not tracking. And we're not tracking it or not reporting it on the same way because we can't identify an individual. So we do recognize that. And see over there, you'll see current population estimate for home and work in Turkey is 22 million. But we also recognize there's an extended population of 10 million. Now, what it ends up being is you now have 60% of the Turkish population having access to the internet. That compares clearly with some, you know, the Indian market has only got 9% of its population. They have huge potential to growth. And of course, the Chinese population, 37% of the population having access. There's an awful long way for them to go. Actually, Turkey's grown. I mean, it's leapt. I think it says 14th place now to 12th. It really is taking its place in the world internet environment. China has outstripped the USA by some way. And what I found very interesting is, I don't know what it is about the culture in Turkey, but the hours spent online ranks 5th out of our grouping of 43 countries. It's terrific. Growth rates are, you know, the average growth rate or total growth rate of the internet is 10%. In broad terms, Russia grew at 38%, or 30%, and China grew last year by 28%. These are huge, huge growth figures. And there you see, in a small basket of countries, Turkey is way in the middle of its growth plans. You'll recall I mentioned the 1996, the US dominated. Well, if you look at US businesses now, they're dominated by their traffic outside of the States. Huge, 84%, 82% from Google and Microsoft, and Facebook is 78% outside the United States now. These are, you know, these are telling you what's happening to the marketplace. But when you look at Turkey, the reverse is the case. Now, of course, language plays a great deal in this, but I'm pleased to see that most of the major businesses are now having at least 10%, some of them approaching 15% of their traffic outside of the Turkish borders. And speaking with a number of people in my meetings this week, it seems that more and more companies are looking outwards to build their business. But you see, the internet still has a problem. If you look at the way people consume the internet into heavy, medium, and light usage, and look at the top 20% of time that people spend, they're actually consuming, in the United Kingdom, 57% of all pages are consumed by the heaviest users. Turkey's mirroring that. Now, I come from the TV industry originally, and the Holy Grail was the medium and light user, because basically you want to speak to everybody in the country, not the top 20%. So the industry as a whole, globally, has a long way to go to really to make it a truly populous medium. So talking a little bit about Turkey now. I have to read these, I can't remember them. So year on year, 15% growth. Average daily visitors, 24%. So you're not only growing, but you're actually returning to the site more frequently. But pages viewed, not quite such great growth. That's probably because you're doing different things, and the way in which we might, for instance, report social networking, sites that may not repeat their pages so often. Video, consuming a video stops you from looking at a page. Usage days, Still growing up, so more time, people using the internet on more days during the course of a month. And of course, growth in visits, pretty close to the unique visitors. But Turkey's remarkable, isn't it? You know, I don't know what it is about the older people in Turkey, but they're not accessing the internet. And frankly, that's a great growth opportunity for the marketplace. You know, only 2%. I think there's an opportunity there. I talked about the Turkish internet growing at 15%. So these are some of the top sites that are growing at much faster. I was staggered by the growth of Dailymotion in just 1 year. But pretty much all of those are growing really fast. And it's great to see. So, looking at categorization, I know that the theme here today is about social media and about retail. Well, we actually group all blogging and social media together in a category called conversational media. What's interesting is that in, 6 out of those 8 categories, Turkey seems to be right up at the end of the scale in penetration of those categories. Now, of course, there will be some categories that the Turkish population is not so high on. Banking, for instance, online banking, has some way to go in terms of catching up to a European average. But certainly, in terms of search, I mean, Google dominates, and Google dominates Turkey. And if you look at some of the other countries, people aren't quite so dominated by the use of search. Is the USA there? No, search doesn't, is around 75% in the States. Retail, yeah, we're not down there at the 83% of the UK marketplace. But of course, the UK marketplace has developed quite unusually in online retail. They have food distributors, Tesco online, Waitrose online, who are delivering groceries door to door. And in an environment where everybody is working, the delivery of groceries door to door whilst you're online at work has been a fantastic opportunity. And that's why, you know, there is a significant retail leadership in the UK. Multimedia. I'll speak a bit about video as I go on. We've already heard about news and information being very important to the online marketplace here. And I think that, you know, you lead this basket. Games and sports, still incredibly important. What it does mean, though, is because these bundle are very high, some of the other categories of content are indexing quite low. Talking about social networking now, only 5% of people in Turkey don't social network. What is that about you? I don't know. And actually, it's 100% in Mexico. Actually, as I looked, there were 5 South Latin American countries that had 100% penetration of social networking. Oh my God. China, perhaps that's a legal issue, I'm not sure. But it's a very different story in China. Sorry about this chart, but it's difficult following these lines, perhaps. What I wanted to point out were a couple of things here. So, retail has grown really quite well, 22%, and the travel category here has actually grown by 40% in just 1 year. There's a huge catch-up. The rest of the world's travel industry, of course, is very much online, but there's obviously a huge catch-up taking place here. I'm not sure, the sense of it, the grey line right at the bottom is the couponing category. I'm not sure if we've got that quite right. My sense of it is that we should categorize some of the retail into couponing, because that seems to be low. And online banking, as I said, only 34% penetration. You know, UK is now at 45% penetration of people using the online to bank. Thought you'd be interested in these top 10 retail categories. 40% of people who go online once a month, at least, to an apparel, a clothing store. That surprised me. Now, I don't know if they're buying, but they're certainly looking. Comparison shopping, of course, that's going to be key and critical. Computer hardware and retail. But I thought what would be interesting was to look at the relationship between shopping and social media. So we have an ability to look at the activity of individuals who go to social media sites and then who visit retail sites. And you see the hierarchy is different. But actually, if you think about it, it's not surprising, is it? Retail music, fragrances, retail movies, luxury goods, obviously people buying diamonds for their girlfriends. You know, intuitively, social media are things that drive and help those kinds of categories. Not exclusively, but it's a very interesting indication. Not sure if you're going to be surprised at this. 7 out of the 10 top retail sites are Turkish. What I was surprised at was actually how high Amazon had grown and how quickly it built a business in Turkey. So, enough of the page-level data. What I'm pleased to announce is that we're launching video data for the very first time in Turkey. Now, the way in which we do that is very simple. We've actually launched it in version 1.0 right now, and we'll be rolling out a version 2.0 very soon. What we do is we view videos passively and see when somebody within our panel runs a video stream or a flash stream. We report on only those videos that are more than 3 seconds long. So, top line, 2.6 billion videos in a month. 130 videos per viewer in a month, which I think is pretty good. And an average of 13 hours a month. Of course, averages are misleading. Some people are real, nerds. They'll watch videos all day, every day, at work, at home. Actually, they've thrown away their TV and just watching videos off their PC. So, averages are misleading. But what's interesting is this is a medium that is moving towards and challenging the TV medium. And I think that's very exciting. And the average of 6 minutes per video, I think, is interesting because, it's not just short-length videos that are being used. 6 minutes as an average means that there's quite a lot of long-form video being consumed. Turkey, and the launch today, I have to say, has coincided with launching in many, many countries around the world. All 40, eventually, by the end of 2011, we'll be reporting video in every country that we report in the internet. And these are just some preview figures, but you'll see there Turkey is way in the middle in terms of video consumption. Now, I've been told that your consumption of TV is very high in comparison to the rest of the world as well. So my anticipation is probably that Turkey is going to move up that scale. The only limitation, of course, is content, because US and UK have the English language in common and huge amounts of video content to consume. So who's winning the race? Facebook and Dailymotion. And if you recall the earlier charts, Dailymotion has just grown by, I think it was 40% in a year. So that's a fantastic performance. So to conclude, what I'd like to do is just talk about just something that I feel very passionately about, something that's perhaps a warning to anybody who advertises on the internet. Because what people do on the internet, and they seem to have got into a mentality of looking at a cost per performance, whichever that performance might be, cost per click, cost per acquisition. And those clicks are very important. The trouble is, those clicks are declining. Now, this is not our data, this is data from DoubleClick. And every year what they do is do an annual review of click rates across the world. I'm comparing here 2008 and 2009, and DoubleClick included Turkey, and I haven't a clue why they didn't include Turkey in their review of 2009. But I think you're going to get the point here that, in just 1 year, click rates declined by 28%. Now, in anybody's book, 28% is a huge number, and you need more inventory to deliver a click rate if you have that declining rate. Now, it gets worse, of course, because those people who click actually are the heaviest users of the internet as well. So what I'd like you to be aware of is that if you're searching for that one person, it's about roughly 0.1% of people clicking. There's one person 1,000 clicks, basically, on an ad. So to track your advertising campaign on that one person and ignoring the rest, I think is a waste of the medium. So what we do is we have a way in which we can track advertising effectiveness, which doesn't require the click. It looks at behavior, people's behavior, having been exposed to the campaign and not exposed to the campaign, and looking at their behavior and whether or not they move to the designated site. And I said that. And we've compared TV with display. So what these charts show is that 1 week after a campaign, the percentage lift against a controlled group, i.e., there is a difference between the control group, the people who didn't see the campaign, and the people who did see the campaign, of 1.9% as they visit the target site. Let's call it a Nokia campaign and people visiting the Nokia site. And it grows. After 2 weeks, you get to 2.5 in video terms, and a similar growth in display. Of course, you'll note here that the performance in terms of latent activity is almost double that of display. And then when you look at frequency, something different happens. As time goes on, after 1 to 5, after somebody sees the ad 1 to 5 exposures on display, there's a lift, and more exposures give more latent awareness and people changing their behavior. But it does not so on video. Video seems to have a much greater effect. And obviously the learning there is actually you don't need so much frequency when you're using video. So those of you who are considering selling or buying video, bear that in mind. So just to conclude, you've got one of the highest engagement levels anywhere in the world. Your sites are beginning to grow outside Turkey. Right now, the biggest ones are growing by something between 10 and 15% of their external traffic. Online travel and retail are going great guns. Look at those two in detail. There is a very, very significant correlation between social media and the retail category. Video measurement has arrived. It has arrived in a form of data that we provide in the same way as we provide page-level data. And finally, please open up. Don't just use the click to measure your advertising campaigns. Please try and look at other measures. Thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.